So the main piece of data in this app is probably going to be a bunch of messages, right? That's kind of what this is all about. This is a chat app. So the messages are kind of the main thing. So it'd be cool if we could get them onto the page. So we mentioned that should probably be a component of its own, the list of them. So let's make that one, and let's just call it MessageList. So in the source directory, we'll make a new file. We'll call it MessageList.js. Do we think it needs state of its own? I'm skeptical of that. And you know what? It's pretty easy to switch between the two. So I'm just going to start with a stateless functional component. If we need to make it a class later, it's not that big a deal. So let's get in the habit of how to create these things quickly. So I need to import React from React. I need to make a new arrow function, const MessageList. Still capitalize it just like you would a class. It's still a component. And that equals an arrow function. Before I forget, export default MessageList. And then I don't need a render method because my entire component is a function. I just need to return some JSX. And as usual, I'm going to make a class of MessageList. Put that on a div. And just for the moment, I'm going to stick the word MessageList in there so that I know my component has made it onto the page. So which other component does this belong inside? Yeah. Chat, right? There's sidebar, then there's everything else. So in chat, I'll leave MessageList open over here. Inside chat, I'm importing chat header already. I will now import MessageList from /MessageList. Everybody get the / thing? You're giving it the path from the current file to the file you're importing. And it's in the same directory, so that is /. If you don't put the path, even though it's in the same directory, if you don't put that, it won't look in the current directory because that's just not how it works. It's configured to automatically look inside node modules. So if you don't put a path, it'll look inside node modules, but it will not look inside the current directory. So then under chat header, I can actually write a MessageList tag, and that will include it on the page, and there it is. But there's not much to it. It'd be really cool if it actually printed a list of messages. We've done this trick before. We did it in React Robots and CodePen. Some of you did it last night with your homework on Dwarf Underground. So let's see if we can do it. So we need a list of messages that we can iterate over. So that probably ultimately needs to be in state somewhere. But we could simplify it for now and just put it in a local variable or something if we wanted. So inside MessageList, MessageList is still just a function. It's a React component, but the only thing that really makes it a React component is the fact that we return some JSX at the end. But above the return statement, you can still do whatever JavaScript-y things you want. Now, we're not going to do DOM manipulation, but we can do whatever else we want. So I could totally just make an array here. Const messages equals an array. And we could keep them simple and just make them strings for now, but I think you know they're probably going to be objects sooner or later with more than one field, just like our spells were. So it could be an array of objects. And each object might look like username, colon, whatever, body, and then some text. Chatting up a storm, yo. And let's put another message in there. dplazo. That's her. Body. This guy is so annoying. I hate my job. I like to put my trailing comma in there. So let's see if we can just spit that on the page. You can leave the word message list there if you really want to, but eh. So we're going to use map, right? So let's put in some curly braces to say, hey, this is a JavaScript expression that I'm putting in the middle of my JSX. I don't need to put this.state.messages because that's not on state, right? It's just a local variable. This is just a function. So that is just messages. It's just a local variable in this function called messages. So I can say messages.map. Each message is going to be passed in, right? To my arrow function. My arrow function just needs to return some JSX. It's a one-liner, so I don't need the word return. I don't need curly braces. I don't need parentheses around the argument. I can just put like div and whatever you want to put there. We could just put message.username colon message.body or something like that. Whatever you want to do. Just to see if we can make it work. I don't usually put spaces in there. Does it work? D-Strews chatting up storm, yo. dplazo, this guy's so annoying, I hate my job. But I get a warning. It's red, but it's still just a warning. But we do want to fix it. Each child in an array or iterator should have a unique key prop. Check the render method of MessageList. See this for more information. So React has generally pretty good error messages and often includes links to documentation, especially for really common stuff. So let's click on that and see what it says. Keys. Keys help React identify which items have changed, are added, or are removed. Keys should be given to the elements inside the array to give the elements a stable identity. So the idea is, as in the example here, if you're mapping over something and putting a bunch of LIs or divs or whatever, if you're spitting out a bunch of the same element because you're looping over an array, it wants you to stick a prop on there called key. The best way to pick a key is to use a string that uniquely identifies a list item among its siblings. Most often you would use IDs from your data as keys. So, okay, we didn't actually put IDs in here, but it probably would have been a good idea to give it some unique identifier. In the long run, these will probably have a unique identifier of some kind. So we could say ID 1, ID 2. Why not? Seems legit. And then you just put the key prop on whichever element you're making a bunch of. So this div here, just add a prop called key and set it to message.id. So now this is getting a little long. If I want to put this on multiple lines, I could just wrap this JSX in parentheses. Then I can put it on multiple lines. So there's my div tag, there's my contents. Seems legit. Does the error go away? Sure does. Warning, not error. But still you want to do that. So what it's trying to say there is, as we know, React is pretty efficient. It only changes the parts of the page that actually change. when your state or your props or whatever change. So in the case of things that you map over, it needs a way to identify, if it were a list, which LIs have changed and which haven't. If you don't put keys on them, it just has to redraw the entire list. And that's inefficient. It may not make a huge performance difference in simple examples, but it does make a difference, and the snappier things feel, the better. Let's let it be as efficient as it wants to be. So we put key props on list items or list item-like things when we create loops like this. So what do we do here? Display a static list of messages. So they're not coming from a database or anything fancy like that. They're not even being stored in state. They're just an array, but by golly, we're printing them using map. That's a trick we've learned, so we're doing it because we could already just change that array to change the page. And that's a lesson that we want to reinforce. Questions?